Hello and welcome to another extra episode of Electoral Dysfunction from Sky News with me, Beth Rigby.
Me, Ruth Davidson.
And me, Harriet Harman.
So look, we used to do this in election era, these extra episodes, but you know, there is news, there's so much news that we are popping up. Now, I'm popping up from home because I'm still absolutely exhausted from last week. So I'm working from home today. So I'm lying low. Ruth, you look like you're in your office. Harriet, I don't know where you are. Where are you, Harriet?
I'm in beautiful Sarajevo and I'm on Foreign Office business as Special Envoy for Women and Girls, and I'm meeting women MPs from the 6 Western Balkan states and women business leaders, and talking about how women can work together across party lines and how they're getting along in the face of the misogynist backlash. So I'm just about to, after I chatted to you, embark on my day with them. I'm really looking forward to that.
I love Sarajevo. I've been a couple of times.
You know, we talk about the special relationship with between the UK and the US, but I honestly think there's a special relationship between women in politics around the world. There's such an instant connection. You know, we're all absolutely appalled by domestic homicide. We're all obsessed about maternity services. And, you know, you could have massive party political divides, but get women in a room together and they're all complaining about men, complaining about their husbands and wanting a bit of progress.
Anyway, I could wax lyrical about the Balkans till the cows come home, but actually talking about whether you're more interested in foreign affairs or domestic politics is one of the things we're going to cover today, because we're still going to have our usual Friday episode of the pod this week, but we did want to pop into your feeds early because there is so much going on. We promised that we'd answer some of your questions, and we want to do a full review of the rest of the reshuffle that happened.
Over the weekend, we were exchanging messages, weren't we? And we were like, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about this. We didn't talk about the Home Office. We didn't talk enough about what the changes were and what they meant. Another subject is jumping out of the sheets for Labour, isn't it? Which is the deputy leader race. So we've got so much to talk about. So we're going to talk about all of that. The number 10 is meeting, the new reset cabinet is meeting this morning. The deputy Labour leader race is in some sort of frenzy, which I kind of think, to be honest, is unjustified to what the leadership race is. But everyone's going crazy about that at the moment, maybe because it's the way it speaks to what it means for the Starmer government. But we can dig into that a bit. That is a full bucket, isn't it? Full bucket of topics. Should we kick off with the next Deputy Labour leader? Nominations open today. And just to remind you, that's because Angela Rayner, when she resigned from government as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Minister, she also resigned as the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. That is an elected position by the party, by members. And we're going to know who that is by October the 25th. But I don't know why I'm even bloody talking about this, because we actually have someone who is a former deputy leader of the Labour Party that we can talk to about all of this. And that's not usual, is it? Not many people get one of those on their podcast. So Harriet, tell us about it.
Well, I think, you know, everybody was in a great deal of shock and dismay on Friday when Angela Rayner resigned, and as you say, resigned as deputy leader as well as resigning as deputy prime minister. The party feel very strongly about the deputy leader because there's a very big connection. The deputy leader campaigns with the party all around the country, you know, typically, and Angela Rayner very much did this as well as has previous deputy leaders, gone round to different constituency Labour parties, talking to the members, attending the regional conferences, helping them with elections, and really being in touch with and in tune with the party members and taking that voice to the leadership. And I think there'll be a choice. So I think that now it's established that the Deputy Prime Minister is David Lammy. It's really a question now of the party role. And I think the idea that it's going to be, as Nigel Farage said in his conference speech, a massive schism in the party, I don't see that. I think the party are very focused on knowing that what the public want is Labour in government to deliver on its manifesto. So I'm in a kind of no drama Starmer mode at the moment.
No,
I'm laughing because all I'm hearing from Harriet there is move along, people. There's nothing to see here. Move along, and we all know that's not really how politics works. When ambitious people get their elbows out, when there's advancement on the go, whether you like it or not, there's going to be a lot of ill discipline. And actually, one of the things that Starmer's had, he's had quite a disciplined kind of government for the first year. But the amount of briefing that's going to happen, maybe not by the candidates themselves, but by their outriders, by the people that are championing them and all the rest of it. I mean, we are going to see an absolute explosion of sort of red on red, I think is the Labour equivalent of blue on blue in terms of just people briefing against each other, because that's how it works.
But you see, last time it's different when Labour's actually in government. And last time there was a deputy leadership election when Labour was in government was in 2007 when I was running for the deputy leadership. And although there were members of the cabinet who were running, as well as me running from a junior ministerial post, and although it was highly competitive, it was not antagonistic because we all knew the party would never forgive us for knocking chunks out of each other. So I think it's perfectly possible for it not to be, a backbiting, a divisive election.
Just to say, my cat Scooby's here. So if you're watching this on camera, that he's very irritating. But this is what working from home is, isn't it?
And this is because you're a mad cat lady, Beth.
I'm just a mad cat lady. But also, look, the thing, Harriet, is when I heard you sort of say about it's going to be no drama Starmer, and I think in a way what you were expressing there is kind of how the leadership of the party want it to be, as opposed to how it might actually wash out, because certainly
I think it's how MPs want it to be as well. The MPs are worried about the next election and they don't want division. People don't want instability.
Yeah, I don't disagree necessarily with that. In that some of the MPs I've spoken to have also said we don't want a massive bun fight. It distracts from the government what they're trying to do. But the fact is, there is also another group of the party, and you've heard the left very vocally over the weekend saying we don't want to stitch up. It's got to be a fair process. The question I've got for you, Harriet, is the barrier to nomination is really high. You need 80 MPs to back you, and then you need 3 affiliated unions or organisations to back you, or 5% of all constituency parties. Do you think that is a way of, if you like, just limiting the amount? Presumably, it's about limiting the amount of candidates. Can a left winger get on the ballot? Because at the moment we've got Belle Ribeiro-Addy. She's a left-wing South London MP. She used to work from Diana Abbott, and she's thrown her hat in the ring. Now, if Belle gets on the ballot with 2 or 3 other people, the problem for Starmer is he does not want someone that's going to be a rabble-rouser as the deputy leader of the party, like a constant thorn in his side. But that is really sort of beyond his control, right?
If you can't actually win the support of 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party, you're not really in a position to be an effective deputy leader. So, I mean, there's always arguments about cut-off points and percentages, but I think it's fair enough. You don't have to get the majority. There's going to be more than one candidate probably. And if there isn't enough support for a left-wing candidate in the Parliamentary Labour Party, well, that's the situation that it is. But it doesn't mean there won't be a competition and there won't be a campaign. I think the party would feel disappointed if there was only one person nominated, if one person was put in and hoovered up all the nominations.
It's already shaken out in the past few days, because Louise Haigh, who was the Transport Secretary that had to resign over the phone issue, she was being talked up. She has made it clear she's not standing. And as I understand it, there's kind of, you'll know better than I do, Harriet, but I think there's a group of quite senior, like female MPs in the Commons. And I think and they're all friends and colleagues, and they back each other. And I think one of them will decide to stand, and they aren't going to all try and stand against each other. And I'm wondering whether that person that does decide to stand is Lucy Powell. Her name's been mentioned. She was the leader of the Commons. She lost her cabinet post last week. She is a Greater Manchester MP. She's got good roots into the north. She's popular. Emily Thornberry has said she would. I don't know if she's going to get the nominations to stand. You've got Bell, who I think will fast emerge, potentially as the leader or the candidate of the left. Although I should say also that a lot of left MPs have had, I don't know how many they are, but they've had the whip removed from them in the Parliamentary Labour Party. So that will be, I think, an area of contention and noise if people can't nominate someone because they've had the whip suspended. And then finally, the big bombshell this morning is Bridget Phillipson, because everyone was saying what Starmer needs is someone from the cabinet to take, to try and stand so that he has someone who is an ally in that position. And Bridget Phillipson this morning has put herself in the ring saying, I'm a proud working class woman from the Northeast. Make no mistake, we're in a fight. We all know the danger reform poses. What do we make of it all? Who wants to go first?
Well, I don't think that they will discuss it amongst themselves and decide which one will go forward. I think the chances are that more than one will go forward, but I think they will discuss it amongst themselves. And I know they'll decide that they are going to be sisterly with each other and in solidarity with each other, because they will all want the person who gets it to succeed. Lucy is very able. She's been leader of the House, so she knows all the Labour MPs, including the new intake. She's a very good communicator. Andy Burnham has more or less endorsed her, and she, I think if she could get 80, would undoubtedly throw her hat in the ring. I think it's unlikely that Bell Ribeiro-Addy will, who's from London and from the left of the party, of the campaign group, I think it's unlikely that she will get sufficient nominations, although there were more than 100 Labour MPs who opposed the government on the disability cuts. I don't think that that was a kind of just a sort of sectarian leftist activity. That was real concern about the policy. And I think that many of those who signed the amendment opposing the disability cuts would still not support a leftist candidate like Bell.
Isn't the truth, Harriet, that the last thing that Starmer's government want is a left-winger being the deputy leader of the party? It just causes him a world of pain. They will have their own power base, and he just doesn't want someone having a go and criticise. He's got enough problems at the moment. And that's why Angela was so useful to him, right? And that's partly why she was such a loss to the government, because she was the bridge between Starmer's centrism and the party and the unions, right? Even though the unions and her had a bit of a tougher time once she was in government.
Of course, Keir Starmer won't want somebody from the campaign group as his deputy leader, more or less opposing and criticising everything he's done. But my point is not just that that's not what Keir Starmer will want. I don't think that's what the Parliamentary Labour Party will want. And I think that they will not nominate Bell, not because Keir Starmer is telling them not to, but because they don't want instability. They want a team. And then, of course, there's Bridget, who, has a bit like Angela Rayner, got quite a remarkable backstory. She told us in the House of Commons a very, poignant story from her background of where her neighbour actually bought her a coat because her mother, who was a lone parent, didn't even have enough money to buy her a decent coat to, protect her against the cold when she was a schoolgirl. And she went to Oxford. She's incredibly bright.
And Ruth, I think you need to fess up to what you do at midnight, because you told me just before we started podding, and I believe that you have to share this with the world. Because Ruth, come on, let's have it. Can't hear you. You've muted yourself because you're so embarrassed about this. You don't want to admit it.
I was going through the runners and riders of who's standing, and I was thinking to myself, poor Keir, there be dragons, because in terms of the ones that are out of the blocks quite early, like you say, Lucy Powell, sacked by the Prime Minister just last week, one of only 2 cabinet ministers that had the line at the bottom of the press release that says Lucy Powell and Ian Murray have left the government. So Lucy Powell could stand against Keir. She got sacked by him last week. Emily Thornberry is going to run, it looks like. And she was the only shadow cabinet member that didn't get a job in government last year when they moved from opposition to government. And I think it's fair to say was not happy about that. And you've got possibly a lefty candidate in order to show the breadth of the party, which would be a headache for Keir. And then you've got Bridget Phillipson, who it would look like would be the kind of the Keir Starmer approved version. I would not be surprised if there is a cri de coeur for somebody outside the Starmer project to add a little bit of balance or ballast against it. But this is where I get back to Emily Thornberry and my sad time last night at midnight, because I was working out how close they all are to each other. Because Keir Starmer,
you know, has have fun.
I tell you what, he has a really big constituency boundary, so he's right next door to Emily Thornberry, so they share a constituency boundary, so they're like centimetres apart, if that. And then the new Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, is a Tottenham constituency, which is won over again. The only thing between him and Keir Starmer is Jeremy Corbyn's constituency of Islington North. But I found the closest 2 points. I went on the amazing Ordnance Survey people. They do electoral maps, and you can go online and you can draw the boundaries of every Westminster constituency in the country, or Holyrood constituency, or Welsh Assembly constituency, or whatever. And I found the closest 2 points, and then I Google mapped how far they are apart. And it's basically Finsbury Park Underground Station and Kentish Town, and over a wee bit. And I did the distance between them, and there's 2 miles in it. So you could have a deputy leader, a prime minister, and a deputy prime minister that all live and represent within 2 miles of each other, which is great for the people of London, all 9 million of you, but not so great for the other 60 million of us who don't live in London, who already think that London is overrepresented in government and transport and politics and media and, you know, EastEnders and everything else. So yeah, you could look a very, very narrow base.
I think the party will be very aware of that, and I think that will, despite her great abilities, that will count against Emily Thornberry. And I think traditionally, if you look at who the party's chosen, they have chosen somebody from a different part of the country, from the leader, in order to create that reach.
I do think that it will work against Thornberry. I think that Lucy Powell, she could be there as a really experienced party, but of the members of the soft left, representing their views within the party against Keir Starmer, but of the soft left. And there's as I said, there's the Greater Manchester, the power base with Burnham as well. Phillipson is undoubtedly probably now the favourite, and that you know that she'll get the nominations. Her backstory is incredible. She's come through massive adversity. She believes passionately in what she's doing. She gets a lot of criticism. But the question is, will she come out swinging for the members and for the membership when she is, you know, bound by collective responsibility and in Starmer's cabinet? And that Rayner managed to kind of traverse that because she'd been deputy leader in opposition into cabinet, and I just wonder whether in the end do they end up with kind of a Lucy Powell type figure and then a Bridget Phillipson, and then that becomes the battle. And the question is, I think that you've hit on the head, Harriet, and I don't know the answer, is can they get someone on the ticket who is from the left of the party? I imagine that the leadership really does not want that to happen. The final thing to say, though, is that I agree with you, Harriet. I don't think Labour MPs at the moment want a toxic atmosphere. They have got enough problems. But sometimes there's a disconnect between the party and the membership. Read Jeremy Corbyn for years and years and years. I mean, that was the disconnect in stereo, wasn't it?
The whole thing about Jeremy Corbyn was, we'll shove a lefty on the ticket so the members get a choice, not thinking that he was necessarily going to win. And then he did win, and then you saw what happened when he did win and how that changed the party.
Exactly.
So actually, it's now the MPs don't feel, oh, well, we have to give everybody a shout. They now feel we've got a very serious job to do.
Exactly.
To winnow the field
completely right
to people that are legitimate. I have one question, Beth. Why was Lucy Powell sacked? Was it because he didn't like her? Was it because she was crap? Was it because she was, she didn't have a profile? Like, why was she sacked? I've never worked it out. It's not been written anywhere. I've not read any gossip. She doesn't appear to have been disloyal. I don't get why she was out, like why she was punted.
My reading of it, and this is my reading of it rather than making lots of phone calls and sourcing it, if you like, is that maybe what happened was Lucy Powell and Alan Campbell, the leader of the House and the chief whip, they became the four people for the failures of the welfare vote, right? So all of that problem rightly or wrongly, I don't necessarily think that's particularly fair. You know, if you speak to people in the whip's office, if you speak to, you know, people around around Parliament, they would say they were trying to tell the leadership.
Yeah, they were warning Number 10 that this was going to happen.
But that's the only reason I can think of, really. And sometimes also, if you're not that close to the leader, you just become the victim of having to make space as well. Sometimes it is just that. I mean, Harriet, that is literally my sort of reading of the situation.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Beth. I think sometimes there's a tendency to overinterpret, but I think it's probably a bit of a consequential, as you've said, is that Starmer and his team wanted to move Alan Campbell, who was the chief whip, out of the chief whip's role. The only job he was prepared to do in government was leader of the House. He didn't want to, having been chief whip for years and years, he didn't want to take on a department at this stage. So the only job he was prepared to do was leader of the House. And it looks like, therefore, what happened to Lucy Powell, i.e. being sacked, was consequential. Even though it's a short campaign, people will be seen at hustings. There'll be a hustings at the PLP on Wednesday night before the vote for nominations closes on Thursday. And often people predict about individuals and then suddenly they go, oh, actually, that person's miles better than somebody else. And they rethink it. So this is not a foregone conclusion, this election. They will judge the candidates by how they campaign. And this is a campaigning role.
Well, look, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, so that New Look cabinet is meeting as we are speaking in Number 10. Starmer's asking them to focus on growth. He's now looking around the table and the seating plan has all changed. So Yvette Cooper is now the Foreign Secretary. Shabana Mahmood is now the Home Secretary, taking Yvette Cooper's job. David Lammy has moved to Justice, which was where Shabana Mahmood was. Pak McFadden, who was always at the table, has now got a super ministry, so he's increased his power base. He's looking at welfare and skills. It wasn't a tinkering around the edges. It was a proper overhaul of cabinet. And before we get into who we think is going to succeed, do well, struggle, etc., let's answer a question from one of our listeners, from one of our lovely dysfunctioners about the actual role. Darcy has been in touch and says, I was wondering whether it is considered a promotion to go from the Home Secretary to the Foreign Secretary. And if so, what are the benefits?
I'll start on that. So it's a good question, Darcy, because I'm wondering that myself. I mean, basically, they call them the four great offices of state. That's Prime Minister, Chancellor, Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary. So they're the big four. Like if you're on safari and it's like the big five beasts of the animal kingdom, the big four are the big four beasts of the political kingdom. So in a way, for Yvette Cooper, I mean, she's moving from one big office to another big office of state. So put it this way, it's definitely not seen as a demotion. And so it's kind of shifting the dial around a bit, but it's not considered a promotion. And arguably, given how intractably difficult the Home Office is, and actually what a great gig the foreign job is, it's much more difficult now in the world we live in. But essentially, the Foreign Office, like you're the chief diplomat, you fly around the world, you've got a grace and favour home. I understand it. I think she and David Lammy are going to share that actually, but you've got a grace and favour home. I'm wondering about Yvette Cooper because someone reminded me last night that Yvette Cooper has done the Home Office brief for 15 years. So she did it in opposition. She was chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. Starmer eventually moved her into the shadow brief because he realised she knew everything about everything. And then she came into the Home Office and actually all the things that Shabana Mahmood and the government have announced in the past 48 hours about potentially using disused army, putting people in army accommodation or on army bases. This is a Farage policy that the government now are considering. Or the thing Shabana Mahmood announced on Monday, which was that we are going to not give visas to countries that don't do returns agreements. That's Yvette's work. That's not Shabana Mahmood. You don't just announce that. That's work in train. And I wonder, therefore, whether Yvette could feel a bit pissed off that she's been, because if John Healey on the Defence Secretary said yesterday, oh, Yvette's done a great job at the Home Office, and the answer is, well, why are you moving her then? Yeah. So I think it was smart of Starmer to move her to the Foreign Office, because to demote Yvette, given the work she has done in the Home Office, would have been a massive problem for him, I think.
Well, I think Yvette will be disappointed to have been moved from the Home Office, because she'd put a lot of things in place. And although she'd been shadowing the brief for years, and although she'd been chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee for years, she'd only been the Home Secretary for just over a year. And as you say, putting things in place. But Yvette's a realist and knows that unless you're the Prime Minister, you don't get to choose what your job is.
I think in terms of how it is seen and how it is viewed, I mean, the idea that you are the person who, on behalf of the United Kingdom, goes out and speaks peace nation unto nation has always been considered sort of one of the really big jobs. And it's usually, and way back in kind of history, it was a job that you gave to somebody who was vastly experienced, who had done other roles. Like, you never gave somebody, their first cabinet job was never Foreign Secretary, their first front bench role. They didn't come from being the deputy, the deputy paperclip secretary in the Department of Administration to become Foreign Secretary. You had to kind of have done some big gigs first. And also, because other people gauge you overseas, you are judged, and you're how serious the United Kingdom is in the world, and the kind of precedence you get. Like, Beth, you were probably still jet lagged from the last 17 foreign trips you've been on with Keir Starmer. You know that there is a real sense in these rooms of who's up, who's down. That kind of operator is quite important, but it's a job that doesn't suit everyone. So, I mean, if you've got a family, you're barely home if you're Foreign Secretary, if it's a busy time in the world.
The other thing that struck me about Shabana Mahmood, who's the new Home Secretary, she was the Justice Secretary. She came out and said, I'm going to go further and faster than Yvette Cooper. There's nothing I won't do to stop the small boats. The digital ID cards might be coming down the line at conference and stuff. I mean, that is an oblique criticism of Yvette, isn't it, Harriet? Like the idea that she didn't go further and faster enough, that you had to change up the Home Secretary in order to deliver on this, when actually probably Yvette's put in a shitload of groundwork to really kind of ramp up the policy. A bit unfair on Yvette, do you think?
Well, I think it is difficult, because I think in the cabinet before the reshuffle, people were able to blame their predecessors, and those were the Tories. Now the predecessors are Labour cabinet ministers. And actually, you do lose a bit of time on delivery if you have a reshuffle, because you have to get to know the new department, and all the people who engage with the department from outside have to work out, what makes the new Secretary of State tick. So they really do have to crack on with it, because we're not in a position where the government want to lose any time on anything.
So, if she thought, I'm only going to have 12 months, 13 months in this, she would have been a bit noisier. She would have had more announcements earlier, but she was trying to kind of lay the groundwork. So I think, I think Shabana Mahmood will be able to have a nice diet of announcements to make while she's getting to grips with the role.
Okay, well, look, let's go to an ad break. But just as we do that, just to let you all know, that Emily Thornberry has confirmed she is running for the deputy leader of the Labour Party. She says, we fought hard for a Labour government, but we've made mistakes, must listen. Welfare, Gaza, wealth tax changes to come on SEND, which is special educational needs. I will be the voice for the membership unions, PLP, and our constituents, not just nod along. So Emily Thornberry has thrown our hat in the ring.
Of course she has. She was always gonna.